What's up, everybody? We are nearly 8 days away from the start of the NFL draft, and I can't wait to see where all these prospects are going to end up going. But we've got one more film room for you guys here at the RGR Football Channel. My name is Daniel Harms, Senior Film Analyst, and we're going back to the wide receiver room today. Looking at the way this draft might shake out, in the first round, there's a very good possibility that tackle might be where the Chiefs go, whether it's a trade up or a stand and pat. Considering the depth at left tackle specifically, there is a good opportunity for the Chiefs to get one of those guys on day one. Come back around on day two, looking at the depth of this wide receiver group. That's where we're going to focus on today. The meat of this draft on day two, those top 100s at wide receiver. We're talking about Javon Baker, wide receiver out of UCF. Last year, he broke onto the scene after he transferred from Alabama, finally having a much larger output with 52 receptions for 1,139 yards and 7 touchdowns. So that's nearly 21.9 yards per reception, which is an insane number. So today we're going to talk about his measurements, some of his testing, get into the tape, and tell you why he's going to be able to translate his game to the NFL. The most important thing, how can your skills, what you do in college, translate to the NFL? If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that sub button right now. It'll get you into everything. You can become a member at RGR. If you want to become one of those members, get in, go over to rogueapc.com where we have all the draft guide, the athletic matrix. You guys can get involved in that right now. It'll give you the Javon Baker breakdown, the stats, the analytics, the film grades, and everybody else that we've covered in this draft. Use the code RGR and get that discount. Please use it so we can continue to get you guys out there the best content that we provide. Then follow along with me as we get into our Javon Baker breakdown here and earn a like from you guys. So he measured in at the combine at 6'1", 202 pounds with 32 1/4 inch arms and 9 5/8 hands. We got 3 5/8 inch hands. We got some real problems everywhere, not just in the NFL. But his 40-yard dash wasn't blowing anybody away, which you watch this tape, you can kind of understand that. He ran a 4.54 with a 1.58 10-yard split and a 37-inch vertical, good vertical, and a 10-1 broad. So he's kind of average of the broad jump explosivity, but good vertical numbers, which show you a little bit that he's still able to explode out of his breaks from a standstill, which does show up on tape. So when we're getting into his tape here, what I like about Javon Baker is the way that he's so versatile. He has a lot of nuance, the subtleties to his game that make him not just an excitable player, but a contributor, an early contributor, things that he understands about the game. Like right here, he's just running a go route basically down the left-hand sideline, but how are you creating for yourself when you know that you don't have much room to work with, and how can you create that defensive back, that cornerback, whoever's on you, can you create a little bit of space between you and him? So right here, sells the vertical, goes inside, a little bit of shoulder shimmy. He does very aggressive at times with his jab steps, his outside steps. You see those shoulders kind of fly around, but then you also see them dip out of the way. Right here, you see that corner is trying to get hands on him. Right here, he dips that right shoulder underneath, and then he's going to kick it back really quickly to create that separation right there. Boom, right there, elbow back, and then he's open. He's wide open down the field for this comebacker, right? When the DB is turned to you, playing the wide receiver, as the receiver, you have that ability to now maintain your distance, time your jump, attack the ball in the air, come down with both feet in bounds. That's what I like about that specific rep. I think he's an excellent player along the sideline with his body control, his jump timing, and his hands attacking the football. And what I'm looking at for Javon Baker down here at the bottom of your screen, he's lined up in this reduced split stack formation on the short side of the field. And how is he going to generate separation? Like, what about his game translates to the next level? There's quite a bit of it. But when you are a trusted player among your quarterbacks, and there were multiple quarterbacks that played and started for UCF last year, this is one of those plays where he's going to do a nice job releasing to the outside, leaning into the DB at the top, a little bit uncontrolled out of the break. And this is what I mean by that. So here's the release point. He's going to do a nice job again of kind of staggering his release, where he's going to come out, square up a little bit. He's already released to the outside. So you see here, he takes a little bit of an outward step here. He's now outside that corner. So he's freezing the DB, and he's going to come up around him, right? Nice job here. Accelerate up, lean into that DB. Again, he's in your hip pocket on your right-hand side. He's going to lean in, use really good eyes, use shoulders, all of those things to sell an inside move and then break out. And this is where that uncontrolledness does come in, because he slips out of his break right here. He does try to move a little bit faster than I think his body typically does. And you see that he does have some of the balance issues. But right here, he's not open. He's looking. He's got eyes on the quarterback, and the DB is playing him, basically giving up on the play. When you have this position here, and a quarterback, any quarterback, honestly, that has a player that they trust with space around them, they're going to find ways to throw that football into space. So you have, again, you see this DB, whose head is looking this way. And he's like, I'm just going to look down this way, because Javon's kind of not running, but he's got eyes on the quarterback. He's reading the situation, and then he's going to run into that space right there. He sees the ball coming, throws it, and he goes into it. That's the trust factor from the quarterback to Javon Baker. Aside from his violent movements, the shoulder shimmies, a little bit too many added steps at times with those uncontrolled breaks, he's not always mentally engaged either, which contributes to the drops. When you're not as mentally engaged in every single effort of the play, of the game, regardless of what it is, we do see that show up on tape. There's a couple of, I think, reasons, but at the end of the day, he was not a highly volume targeted player. He only had one game last year with over 5 receptions, and that was the last game in the bowl game. He had 9 against Georgia Tech. And it was a big game. He also had a couple of touchdowns that, or excuse me, one long touchdown that was a blown coverage as well. So he made a lot of big plays in that game. But it feels a little bit like he needs to be fed the ball at times to keep him mentally engaged. That shows up on run plays too. Like he's not the most engaged blocker. He'd much rather run a route, maybe run up the field and try and take somebody away, than block them, which is going to be more of a little bit of a red flag. Why don't you want to block? You had the physical tools. You're strong enough to be able to. Why don't you want to? So just a couple of things there that I wanted to address about Baker and his game and his ability to stay in the game, because you watch a couple of 3, 4, 5 games in a row and you're like, not everything's all on the same page. You do see a lot of these nuances, these tools, like we're going to talk about really quickly here. And one of the things about him is that, yes, he does struggle at times to stay mentally engaged, but most often you're getting a player that has the tools to create separation late, to create separation early, and through the route. Like, that's unique. It's easy to fall in love with the kind of player that he is. So when you're able to create separation late on a go route like this, you're tracking the football in the air, right? That DB is playing you close. There's not a lot of space in terms of getting downfield all the way for a 50-plus yard gain. So releasing to the outside here, again, tracking the football, right? He's going to come out here. And a lot of times when we see wide receivers and DBs in that locked mode where maybe he's stacked and the cornerback is playing the wide receiver's eyes, playing his hands, trying to time it properly, he's usually at a disadvantage. And the wide receiver, typically will slow down when they're looking for the football, right? Like, that's just kind of normal. You feel like you're trying to do a couple things at once, so your body slows down. And right here, you're going to see them do that right now. They do that. They kind of slow down. The ball is now in the air, right? We see the ball here. And Baker's looking at the ball. Like, he's like, okay, I see that there. And the corner is looking at Javon Baker. So he's able to then really use a little bit of burst right here at the end to accelerate past that stalemate point where they're both intertwined, looking for the football in Baker's case and looking at the wide receiver in the DB's case. So you see him, that late separation, really nice football location from the quarterback, late hands after he accelerates by that DB. So tools to be able to create separation late are very useful in all levels of football. And that's one of those examples of showing you how he's able to do that and use kind of what a DB expects from a wide receiver against them in that situation. And one of the things that I really liked about his game, specifically from a downfield perspective, because he's not going to blow by everybody like we've seen already to this point. But how he's able to overcome that is an important development in any receiver's football IQ. Like, how are you able to overcome some of the deficiencies you might have? So here he is working from the slot, again at the short side of the field. This is a player that can do both, play on the outside, win on the inside as well. And this another area where he comes back to being a trusted player. So he's running a curl into underneath coverage, right? Explode out, sink your hips, decelerate. Very underrated part of wide receivers' tool bag is the ability to decelerate quickly. And I think that while this play doesn't really showcase his best ability of it, if you guys go watch one of the clips I put up on Monday evening of Javon Baker decelerating and the DB falling down, that gives you a good idea of what he's able to do. But we see underneath the ability from these guys that this on like hook defender here is going to be dropping, safety is going to be here, right? And then you have this cornerback out here who's going to be taken away from the play. So Javon Baker realizing pre-snap that he has space underneath, and the quarterback realizing the same thing. Those are nice tools pre-snap, and then executing post-snap to be able to do that. So you see right here, this again, DB out here. Now you get underneath and the deep safety over top. It's a confined space. There's not much there, but when we understand as a wide receiver and quarterback duo, that underneath, I've got room underneath, I have space underneath the defensive backfield here to be able to do that and throw it to a spot and let your wide receiver go get it. We see that also translate immediately to the NFL when you have those receivers that understand space well, those quarterbacks that will throw to a spot and trust you to go get it. And then what he does at the catch point is just as important. It's not just running back to the football and then letting it come. One, the ball is pretty high, so he has to go get it too. That's protecting the football from anybody that might come get it too. So attacks the football in the air. He gets kind of clipped underneath right here by number 32. And you see his leg kind of out here. And I really liked this play because it shows his ability to sink his hips. Like, he's very aware of his surroundings, but he keeps those hips under him. He keeps his feet under him, and then he braces his fall with his hand while he can sink, get into this, and then break out of it, right? That's a very fluid motion to be able to fall down, but keep your balance, use your offhand, and then generate power out of that, right? Back up field. He doesn't get a ton of yards after the catch because that's not really his game in terms of being an electric yards after catch player, but he has a lot of tools to make guys miss and to generate power after he makes a catch with those hips and the ability to sink and get out of his breaks pretty easily. Sorry, wrong player. And this is one of my favorite tools of his, I guess you could say, the sideline awareness, and it translates to every part of his game too, because he has really good eyes, right? He's got excellent eyes. He sees space well. He kind of knows how to get into space. He's one of the best pre and post route space identifiers in the draft, in my opinion. And this is one of those areas where we're going to get to showcase it. And we're going to see at the top of his route here, he's a little bit wasted movement. I don't think he needs to extend outside as much as he did. I don't think he needed to jab at the top of the route a little bit and use that shoulder shimmy. But here he is, okay, putting his head down, really forcing that cornerback to think that he's going to take this up the field, which is what you want to do, especially for a speed out. You want to sell a different route. You always want to sell something else to a corner, to a wide receiver, to any type of coverage that you're running into. You want to sell it. And right here, you already see the gate for this DB opening. His inside hip right here is already opening to the field. So this is what I'm talking about by a little bit of wasted steps here, because you're going to see Javon take some steps outward here and try to sell more when he already has that corner safety thinking he's going downfield. And then you can just get to your speed out a little bit earlier. Regardless, it's just a little bit of wasted movement, and he's still able to get open, which is the point, obviously, of everything. Right here, you see him get out, and then he, again, tacks the football in the air, and then his eyes go immediately down to the sideline. Right here, we see his eyes immediately down footballs away from his body, away from that DB that's coming in behind him, so he can protect the football and see the sideline and make sure he gets 2 feet in bounds. That's the hallmark of one of your smarter players, right? They're always, if they don't know exactly where they are, they always want to make sure, right? You never always know 100% of the time unless you're at the top of your game, at the top of the game in the NFL where you are. But he has very good awareness, and if he doesn't see exactly where he's at, he has the wherewithal to look down and then make sure he's able to get those feet in bounds, which is, a really important part of his entire game. So this right here, again, he's able to play inside, play outside. You've got a safety over top with a lot of separation here. It's just an RPO, but there he goes, right back into that hip flexion and ankle flexion. He's able to dip in and out of breaks very fluidly. It doesn't look hard. It looks very simple for him. And then, like I said, use that deceleration and use it right into like transferring kinetic energy, right? Like it's potential energy into kinetic energy. He does it right here with a simple move, a simple in and out of his break, and he's all the way getting further. You can see that his breakaway speed is not exactly what it was. If there was some of those 4-2, 4-3 players out there, this would be a touchdown because of the ability to create that space. But he does generate explosive plays, and he's somebody that can consistently do that over the middle of the field. I think that's one of the strengths from his game, is that use those over routes, those slants, and just finding space to be able to manipulate corners and get into it is really one of the strengths, of his game. So while we're looking at like explosive plays, for example, last year looking at the Kansas City Chiefs offense, they finally got back to creating more explosive plays, but defenses, especially in the NFL, put tops on a lot of offenses. They put 2 safeties up top and they say, find a way to generate explosive plays underneath and through different route concepts where, we aren't going to let you throw it all the way down the field. This is one of those areas that he can do that. And in his career, he had 47 explosive plays, and 29 of them came in 2023. Was it the transfer from Alabama to, a Big 12 school where the Big 12 defenses aren't as good in defensive speaking? That's just kind of how it is. But he does have the ability to generate those explosive plays. So 29 explosive plays in 2023, a good number for him. And they do come mostly, from what I've seen, in that intermediate part where he's able to then generate some yards after the catch. So getting into what he does a little bit more here with adjustments. So he's down here at the bottom of your screen, once again, on the short side. And when you're able to adjust, not just to space, but zones, and then to the football, there's so many more opportunities for wide receivers to become useful to their quarterbacks. So not every ball is going to be on the money where it needs to be, right? It's just not realistic. And he's got obviously motion going one way. He's built up energy going this way. The ball's behind him. He's able to turn his body around and then catch this football that's behind him and protect it from an incoming defender. This was one of the areas of his game that doesn't always show up. Like, this is where he might lose a little bit of focus, because obviously you have to do multiple things. You're going one direction, you have to adjust your body, and then sometimes when you threw contact in there as well, he didn't always survive the contact. The ball would get jarred loose and he would drop it. But this is, again, more on the quarterback than it is on the receiver. But if we're looking at what he does from the route perspective, so this cornerback is going to end up with a little bit of inside leverage. So instead of just trying to move him off the spot, what Javon does is he's going to sell like he's going down the field. And when you do that, you open up the inside because of the natural progression of what a corner is doing. So he's going to come with you there. He's opened his hips. He's running with you down the field. And then he just puts his foot in the dirt and then slants over the middle of the field. Like, this is a really nice, simple, clean slant route. Boom. And he's able to catch that football there. So lots of different tools that are still translatable. I still think that he's got some work to do in varying his release packages. We've already seen a couple. I think most of the time he's going just pure speed release. He's just trying to close space, which is great. I like receivers that want to get out there and close space. But one of the big things that you have to be able to do from the slot, from from outside, regardless of what it is to run your route based on what coverage you're seeing, right? So here he is in the slot, and you have the defense playing like, okay, maybe this is man coverage, right? Pre-snap look, okay, yeah, maybe that's man coverage. We can kind of see we got two defensive backs over the wide receivers on the left side. They're both at the same level, and maybe they're playing zone. So let's go ahead, or maybe they're playing man coverage. So go into the route, and then they do something different. You have the left-hand side, the far left-hand side defensive back is going to go backwards, right? So he's going to bail out, and this one's going to stay put. He's staying here. So you got this zone player here, and Javon Baker who's running an out route. So I want to get here, right? I want to get here. This is what I want to do. I want to get into this space out here. I have the DB coming down. How am I going to, one, get there with someone in my way still, but I have to be able to adjust my body, my route path to be able to fit that. So he's going to attack this DB, go underneath, dip those shoulders, and then get to it. So it's away from the play. It is a run play, and it's more showcasing that, yes, we have these RPO concepts in the game too. And if this were an RPO, if it were a play action pass, this would be an area where you see Javon Baker get open and adjust his route path based off of what he's seeing. So again, attack, go underneath, dip that shoulder, and then back right here, back to that. Use your eyes to the inside, shoulders. Not everything, everything is going to should look the same regardless of what you see. So you always want to sell those routes. You always want to be able to sell something different to a defensive back, right? So regardless of whether he's going down the field, he's able to break out there and adjust his route to the coverage in front of him. This is probably my favorite play of Javon Baker when I was watching him this past year. I think 5 or 6 games that I watched. And this is by far one of my favorite slight adjustments because, specifically when we're talking about the Chiefs, we know that their route trees have route trees. They can move their routes based off of the coverage that is there. And this is one of those, all right, I'm supposed to be running a slant right here. And he runs a lot of slants. He runs a lot of over routes and a lot of goes, curls. Like that's a large part of his route tree. You don't see much else. That's pretty much a staple. So the route tree is still in development for Javon Baker. But he's running it against what he assumes is this player first, right? And then they add a wrinkle where this guy comes down off of the slant motion. So instead of just running that slant into the safety coming down here, and we can see as the snap gets closer, he's sitting right there. All right, so he sees that, and then he puts his right foot in the dirt, using that peripheral vision to identify that safety's coming down, and takes it up the field. So really nice side adjustment from Javon Baker, and then you still see that hip flexibility, the ankle flexion, to be able to do that at speed. Like he's not just stopping, he's using it and accelerating through it and in and out of breaks. But this is another area where that deep speed shows up. Obviously, it's an inaccurate football to him, but he doesn't have that breakaway speed because that could have been a touchdown. It probably would have been with a better located football. But again, we're just showing you guys what he does and how his game is translatable, what he's able to do. And it's so much fun. Like the more you watch him, the more he grows on you because like I said, the route tree isn't plentiful. It isn't a ton of different routes. He doesn't win with a ton of different releases. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but all he does is win. He gets open. And here we've got him against man coverage. That cornerback walks down. So this is maybe my favorite rep against man coverage. We showed you guys earlier him winning against zone, and this is him winning multiple ways against man coverage. So I was talking about his releases. This is a nice little skip release, and then square up. You see he stabs to the outside, and that gets that DB moving, right? So he goes skip, stab, release inside, and that DB right here is 100% opening to that outside, and we see him then release to the inside. But again, we've talked about multiple routes now where he's selling a different route. So inside release, lean into that corner. It's not pass interference. It's selling a different route pass. So he moves it up, like arcs it out here, and then he's going to take off inside. Translatable techniques. Break open. Wide open over the middle of the field. But then again, we talked earlier, eyes on the quarterback. Post route confidence. Post route adjustments. Finding space. Getting into it. Being quarterback friendly. This quarterback's run out to the left. Okay, I'll stop and I'll get over here. He doesn't get the ball. Would have been a big play, maybe even a touchdown, had the ball come to him. So we get to see release, inside release, dip into that route, come out of it, and then go back around the other way against man coverage. So really, really useful player. I can beat man, can beat zone, can also line up on the outside, line up on the inside. And then, well, I'm sure most of you are asking, how is he against press coverage, right? You have to be able to defeat press coverage in the NFL. I know it's not run a ton, but physicality, as we saw on the Chiefs side on the defense, can ruin offensive game plans if you just stick to being physical with it, right? So here he is at the top. He didn't face a ton of true press coverage, but when he did, you saw the active hands. You saw the understanding of what he needed to do to get open. And then the speed, the acceleration shows up, right? He does not win vertically down the field. But what we do see is that he's going to do a nice job kind of sidestepping, right? He's kind of foot firing a little bit. He's waiting for that punch. And then he takes his left foot, puts it back, steps back, swipes the arms down, and then gets upfield. And he's not only created space downfield, but he's created space between he and the cornerback. There's like a yard or two between the two guys right here, which gives the quarterback room to maneuver, right? You see this is going to be a nice back shoulder throw. And then he does a nice job of settling into the corner, kind of dipping into him, putting his hands on him a little bit, and then coming back to the football. Once again, timing the jump, able to get 2 feet inbounds again at the sideline. So instead of this being, maybe a touchdown play down the field with a guy with speed, it's a good first down chain moving play and showcases what he can do at the sideline while having that space between he and the wide receiver and the cornerback. So fun player that is going to be able to manipulate space, get into it, and at the end of the day, generate explosives in the intermediate parts of the field. I don't know if he's going to be a deep threat in the NFL, but what I do know is that he can generate explosive plays for any NFL offense. I've likened him to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Puka Nacua. Those are the two kinds of players I see. Maybe more like a Puka with these deep over routes, the hands, the body types feel a little bit more astute. I believe they're both 6'1". Puka is more like 220, and Javon Baker is 202. So the body type fits, arm length is there, the physical nature. I wouldn't say he's the most physical guy in the world. I think he understands what he's best at and how he wins and how he can get open. And that's all you really want from a wide receiver. So understanding your own tools, how you can make up for your own deficiencies. I think Javon Baker does a fantastic part of doing that. And he's going to be a very good contributor early on as a wide receiver in anybody's offense. So when it comes down to it, Baker has multiple ways of winning, whether it's on the outside or the inside, and the nuanced technique that he shows in his stem work, being able to manipulate corners, move them. If he wants to run an out route against outside leverage, he can attack leverage, he can attack the feet, and still get there. He can move DBs with his eyes, with his shoulders, with intention to be able to create that separation underneath or over the middle of the field, and he stops and sits in zone. Like, that's what you want from these guys, to be able to win against man and win against zone, and he does that already at a pretty high level in a nuanced way, which is not just winning based off of pure athleticism. It's nuanced, it's understanding the game, it's understanding what you're seeing in front of you. So that translates to the NFL right away. And while he might not blow everybody away with his electric yards after the catch or his deep field speed, he's just going to consistently produce and be a very good possession, make a guy miss, get into space kind of player. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, or hopefully I earned a like from you guys as well, because that's at the end of the day what we all want. We want you guys to enjoy it. I want you to be able to share this with your friends and say, this is a really cool description of a guy that I really like in the draft. And Javon Baker is a guy that I do really, really like. He's a top 10 receiver for me, and it's just a really, really loaded class. So he's going to get pushed down to that second round. Someone's going to get a very good player, and they're going to be really, really happy with him. So as the draft gets closer, RGR is going to have you guys covered. We have live shows for the draft next week, Thursday and Friday, and then we'll do live picks as the Chiefs end up getting on the board on day 3. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have yourselves a great rest of your week. Tune into RGR as we continue to give you guys content from now until the draft, and then when the draft hits, we go live every single day for you guys. Have yourselves a great rest of your day,